I take a koan and then I will talk about, in general, let me take the koan. A monk asked Master Ummon, what will it be when the trees wither and the leaves fall? Ummon said, you embody the golden wind. Hekikan Roku, number 27. What will it be when the trees wither and the leaves fall? There are many interpretations, but two major interpretations are, one is, all concepts, ideas go, you become empty. The other interpretation is, when the trees wither and leaves fall, that means, everything falls, everything you lose, and you get old, sick, and sort of lose everything. I prefer the other interpretation that is much better. So that means, when you sort of lose everything, when you fall into sort of, say, senility, old age, or say, dementia, whatnot, then what happens? Ummon says, you embody the golden wind. Golden wind is autumn wind. Autumn wind is supposed to be golden wind. That means, you embody the golden wind. It does not mean simply nature as such. You embody emptiness. So to say, golden wind. So I have written about the Vela soul making, about Alzheimer's, a few nice things you can read. I do not want to go to everything. I want to say, in general, something. See, when I got an accident, old people often fall down and then break their limbs. So there is danger for the old people. We have to be careful. But it was, dangerous. I really seriously affected. And so I am not yet fully all right. But anyhow, I am maybe 90% all right. So this, when you lose everything. So Shakespeare, about the stages of life, he says, in the old age, it says, is second childishness and mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Sans means nothing without. No teeth, no eye, everything you fall. And what happens? So, we can talk about stages of life a little. Say, baby is dependent completely on the caring of the parents and caretakers. Of course, we usually love to take care of the babies, and babies are adorable, so to say, not always, but very often adorable. And so we love to take care of the babies. And then there is a learning stage. Young boys and girls learn. They grow in skills and learning, very briefly. And then there is falling in love and sort of adolescent age. And then adult age. Adult age, you sort of contribute to the world, build society, build your own life, and be creative, do something. And then little later, old age, not yet completely old, but children are gone, but still maybe you are working. Now they talk about old age, new old age, and all old ages, very different old ages, very many stages. And so, for formally, I suppose, in the 1900 and so on, only about 40 years old, and then 50, and then 60, and then 70, and then even 100 years old, really. So we are getting old very often. And so they are getting very old. And then the old age, very old age, 70s, 80s, still many are active, many can live your life very well, but also many not well. They sort of decrepit or, dementia, Alzheimer's, and so on. And not only that, in England there was a study, they said 1 in 5 people, old people, get cancer, 1 in 5 people. And then others, you can think, heart attack, Alzheimer's, and whatnot, all those things, so many illnesses. You don't realize you are all well off, you are balanced in a way, and your body works well. But anything, something sort of unbalanced, everything collapses. And so I felt like this, everything collapsing. And so you don't realize that. Somehow you go on. A simple virus or simple sort of stroke or simple sort of fall or anything could sort of incapacitate you all the time. And so, and also, not only the body, the brain is most important. The brain is sort of, central organ, but also body is also has a wisdom, has knowledge. But the brain is major organ of knowledge and so on. And so, if it is affected, something, then everything sort of collapses. And so, how do we deal with that? And so, supposing you get to old age, and then you get sort of, in a sense, powerless almost. In a way, it is more like babyhood in a way. You are bedridden, you have taken care of, and so on. However, our very gift, our very presence in powerlessness and weakness becomes a gift and grace to the world. And then Dietrich Bonhoeffer talks about that, And then I quote also Teilho the Chardin, he's a well-known Jesuit anthropologist. And so in my younger years, I thanked God for this expanding, growing life. In my later years, when I found my physical powers growing less, I thanked God also for what I called the grace of diminishment. We are diminishing all the time. And so we have to sort of more and more, sort of or less and less, we become less and less, so to say. Our powers go, our organs go, and all those. And then what we become. And so, in a sense, we become, in a sense, nothingness, so to say. In one sense, before birth we were zero, and after death we are also zero in one sense. We become nothingness in a sense. And so, who are we? What are we? At the same time also, the death is, the denial of death, somebody has written a book, it's a great fear, We don't want to die. We want to perpetuate ourselves in memories, in memorials, in sort of, say, books or whatnot, We want to immortalize ourselves, all those things. At the same time, these things, perhaps you are not very familiar, but you maybe know that. Technology makes us immortal in a sense. And ersatz immortality or pseudo-immortality. It's not real immortality, All the time, technology is helpful for us, we need for the illness and all those things. But also, it can be enslaving. And that is a major problem in the world, We are being enslaved by technology, We become slaves. And so how can we become freed? We are not no more human. We became automatons, you see. Cyborgs, they say, sort of word. And so, sort of cyber being, so to say. And so it's a problem. And so how do we can never make immortal ourselves in cyber immortality, you see. But then, you see, we are sort of, restlessly, relentlessly going on, doing, you see. That's a problem. And so, how do we face all these things? And also remember, in the adult age, I said, there are different ages, different stages. Each has a, Erickson, virtue and a task. Virtue, that is a strength, and a task, and a vocation. And you can fail also in that. And then you are sort of failure. And so virtue, all the time, every age has a stage is a virtue. And adult age, I want only mention adult age, we need a sort of, not a virtue, courage, creativity, sort of boldness, and standing by oneself. And that is not easy. That, it's a lot of standing almost against the world, but not hostile to the world. Almost standing against the world, against society, and going our way is not easy. So it's very difficult. And so adult age need a lot of tasks we need, you see. And so we have to do that. And then old age also is very difficult. We need a lot of patience, and also we need courage. We need patience and humility to accept our humanity. Very often old people don't accept that, you see. Don't want old age and weakness, and all the time they pretend to be young and so on. So that's a problem. And so how do we accept our humanness, humanity? That is a big question, you see. Our humanness, accepting humanity, humanness, that is our life, you see. And then we are not individuals. We are always interpersonal. You see, we are not alone. We are always sort of interdependent. We are, related to everybody almost, particularly so close to friends and families and people like that. And that will be a sort of, gives also our identity. Our identity we acquire in terms of relationship. We cannot acquire identity unless we are related. Somebody must call us you, and then we must say sort of I, see. And so we have need of identity, we need others sort of being and life and so on, you see. And then I want very briefly to say, but the problem is also so many people in relationship, we are not only loving, not only compassionate, we also can be violent, you see. We can be sort of aggressive, we can be angry, wrathful, all those things. So we should not ignore all those things. But the only point I would say is, it must be in terms of somehow love, caring, you see. We have to be sort of forcible. We have to be sort of even aggressive. But we need to be sort of, generally caring and loving in a way, you see. And that is necessary. Otherwise we are only hostile or cynical or bitter, you see. That's all, we are destroying ourselves all the time. And so we have to fight for ourselves and with others, Remember, people are not always loving. And we are not always loving. And we are all, we manipulate. People manipulate. And people undercut us. And people are sort of, exploiters. all those things. And so we sort of, we have to take care, be aware, and then also sort of fight for ourselves, for our survival. But at the same time, it is very often, it is so difficult, Particularly children, you see, they are oppressed. They cannot stand by themselves, and they are sort of lost very often, you see. I don't want to go into all those things. It's too much. But even adults, we are not able to stand for ourselves, to fight for ourselves. It's not easy, you see, remember. But at the same time, our close friends and family, actually our families are not most loving. Our families can be rather very sort of hostile very often, you see, very sort of greedy very often. But they're still our family, our friends. And then the problem is so many losses, you see. We have to mourn, we have to grieve, you see. Sickness, people get sick, people die, people are handicapped, people are broken, you see. And we don't know what is, we can't explain everything, you see. Isa, haiku poet, is a famous poet, he has a nice haiku poem. He suffered all his life. His father died, his mother died, father married otherwise, his son died, daughter died, and another died, all those things, And when the son died, the world is the dewdrop. I don't know exactly, but anyhow, the world is the dewdrop world, dewdrop world, and yet, and so, only three lives. The world is dewdrop world, and yet, he expresses all his longing, suffering, you see. See, the world is a dewdrop. That means, impermanent, passing, everything. But still, yet, you see. And so, we have to suffer very much. We cannot, suffering is part of human being. Mourning, grief, suffering. Also the other things, shame, regret, guilt, remorse, all those things. But only I point out grief and sorrow, you see. There are so many emotions. We must acknowledge pain is part of being human. And also, sometimes use too many techniques, therapy and so on. You solve them, you resolve them, and work through them. It's all nonsense, you see. We have to suffer. We have to be with them. And the dead people with them, we cannot forget. They are part of us, dead people, suffering people, and so on. We have to carry with us all the time. We cannot simply discard and so on, you see. There is no sort of easy solution, you see. Sort of, forget grief. Zen is little dangerous in a sense. Sometimes Zen masters, simple heroic posture. Sort of, only sort of action, doing, nothing else, no emotions. That's nonsense, you see. Don't forget all those things, Grief is part of us. Mourning is part of us. And sort of, we can't escape. And then the grief, part of us is lost. You see, part of us is lost. And a person, you see, we can sort of say, we are living in, say, the memory and so on. Memory is not enough, you see. Memory is not enough. The living persons, they don't live here. The bodies, touching the bodies and so on. We cannot touch and feel and laugh with them and so on, you see. And so it is sort of sorrow, and we have to see, yes, that is the thing. And we have to carry all those things. We should not sort of ignore these things. Part of being human is carrying pain, you see. And pain is all the time. All the time, our life is losses. Every time is loss, very much, you see. And pain, and mourning. See, we must acknowledge all those things. We should not sort of ignore them. Sort of don't take a heroic posture. Everything is all right, It's very dangerous. Everything is all right. Okay, you see. And also, there's a danger, you see. No death and all those things. There's nonsense, you see. We must be aware of death, loss, and all those things, you see. And so sometimes spirituality is even Zen will say, no death, no life, nothing. No, you see, don't talk like that, you see. That is a way of Zen talk, is okay. But, we should not sort of apply to all these things, you see, life. And so we must live our life, you see. Zen doesn't sort of neglect or escape life. We must learn to live our life. And also, remember, when you can live your life, also remember that our life is precious. We have got a short life. Learn to live your life. We are sometimes lost. So busyness is okay, but so busy, so lost, so much sort of caught up with things and so on. And so learn to live your life. But to live your life also means learn to care for each other. Learn to relate to each other. That is the most important, you see. Without caring and relating, our life is useless. We can't live alone, you see. We must care, we must relate, we must sort of care for others and also let the others care for us and so on, mutual sort of thing, you see. And so that is our life, we must learn. But then, let me don't forget it. But we can read the article. It's a small article. We can see, we can read this article here. And then let me say also this. But the sorrow, the pain, and the mourning, and the grief, and the loss, it's not all life. It is something more. What is something more? You see, that should be our Zen practice and so on. What is something more? That must be some peace and some joy. Some peace, Jesus said, the peace the world cannot give. The peace beyond the world, sort of thing, you see. Remember, when I fell down Sunday and also most of the time Monday, I got a splitting, severe headache, and I couldn't feel anything except headache and pain. And the day is beautiful, the birds are singing, the trees are green, the flowers are red, nothing. I can't perceive anything, you see. The world cannot save you. You see, remember, the world cannot save you simply, you see. Simply, caught by the world, it cannot save you. It is something more you need, you see. Something more. Something more, two levels. And one level, interconnection with all beings, you see. Remember, connected with all beings, you see. And with the nature, with also living beings, with the human beings, interconnection. That is one thing, you see. Another thing is, sometimes, you must reach something like timelessness or eternity. How do you reach eternity? For example, maybe you enjoy the music, beautiful music. You forget totally in the music yourself. Forget yourself. It's timelessness, just the music. Or the sunset, just to see the sunset. It is so beautiful. Or see a baby's face laughter, and you forget yourself. These are all timelessness. You see, timelessness, interconnection. You see, our interconnection makes us sort of peace and joy, gives us joy. And timelessness also. But more than that, it's more than that. I said the world cannot sort of save you. You see, that means, I remember long ago, one Japanese therapist, long ago, you see, a woman, she was, illegitimate birth, you see, illegitimate birth, she was not born to her father and so on. She was so much feeling bad and so on, you see. She came and, he talked. He couldn't help her. Finally, he said, sit on the question, koan, what is your original face before your parents were born? What is your original face before your parents were born? She meditated. She came, real peace. My original face before my parents were born. I am not simply my parents' child. I am more than that, It is a deep sense. And so in the Zazen practice is, in one sense, this sort of, letting be, being, and sort of gelassen sign, it's a German word, just letting be. So it's not a manipulation, it's not a technique, it's not doing something, just being. You see, emptiness, you can't realize experience except through your attitude, through your senses. And emptiness is this sort of experience, letting be, being, learning to accept yourself, learning to accept yourself unconditionally. It is all right. I can be myself. And this peace, that is the peace which will be supportive ground of you. And then also joy. Joy is very difficult to explain. You see, joy is not a pleasure. You see, it's not simply pleasure. Joy is the whole being. You see, joy I cannot explain. Joy. You must have also joy. Joy. Somehow the joy must flood you. The peace and joy, the peace which the world cannot give, the joy is beyond the world. That sort of thing. You may not feel all the time ecstatic, but there is a sort of joy. But remember, grief, sorrow, and joy and peace are together. You see, don't think that grief and sorrow is apart from joy and peace. They are together. Only being sort of in the peace and joy, you can live in time and temporality. You can live in grief and sorrow and mortality. Only then you can accept, Otherwise, we are sort of frantic. We are lost, simply. Okay, see, we are lost, you see. I am dying, and so on. Despair only, you see. And so the deep peace and joy must be there. And so the Zen practice should give you. It's not simply concentration. It's not simply one-pointedness. It's not simply sort of thoughtlessness. It is simply letting be, being, learning to accept yourself and saying yes to yourself, learning to realize unconditional love. And also it means also, in this sort of staying, there are many possibilities. Not only sort of accepting yourself as you are, also possibilities. There are future opens. Some of the possibilities are there. You can be sort of different person. You can be a new person. You can actualize different aspect. You be with yourself and then realize, I need not be stuck up with here. I can be also like this. But At the same time, the deep down, that peace and joy should be there, you see. And then also the possibilities must be opened up also, you see. Not simply sort of closed up, simply there. No, possibilities opened up, you see. And so let me end with that, you see. Remember that, you see. Golden wind, you are exposed to the golden wind, Umon says, Master, you see. And so it's a beautiful, you see, sort of, Baso said, sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha when he was dying, you see. Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha. It's a golden wind, so to say, you see. And so our old age, our powerlessness, our sickness is also the golden wind. Not only golden wind, sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha, sort of thing, you see. Remember that. And so where all life, goes. And the morning, and noon, and evening. And so sometimes Zen talks about, metaphorically, the spring, the summer, and the autumn, and the winter. It is all metaphors, you see. All life talking about that. And so life goes like that. And so we learn to accept our life, learn to live our life, learn to say yes to life, learn to say yes, Amen. That's enough, okay. And so let us see, how do you embody the golden wind? So, or sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha, remember. Okay, let us take. Let us take Bodhisattva vow.
Page 13. Bodhisattva vow.
When I look at the universe, all is the great manifestation of the spiritual character. In any reality, in one moment, in any place, none other than God's revelation to us. This realization will